There's now a way to contact the Wolf Connection podcast through our Instagram handle, the Wolf Connection Pod. And for comments and questions, send us an email to podcast@wolfconnection.org with your comments, questions, and guest ideas for Stephen and myself. You may hear your question answered on an upcoming podcast. Thank you for your support, and howls to you all. Welcome to the Wolf Connection podcast. I'm your host, John Kalfa. Let's talk about some wolves. Very happy to have back with us today. He is the founder, range rider of G.R.I.P.H, which stands for Guarding the Respective Interests of Predators and Humans. You can follow his exploits on Instagram at the_Danimal. He is Daniel Curry. Daniel, great to have you back, man. How are you?
Hey, not too bad, John. Not too bad, Stephen. Thank you very much for having me out, having me on the show again. I sure appreciate that. It's good to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, we were doing some poking around, and I think we found. So what happened, everybody? So those of you that don't know, Daniel's been on the podcast before. He's really gotten some great traction with G.R.I.P.H, and now he's venturing into a new portion of his business. So Daniel, I'll leave it to you to explain what you're doing, but I believe it has something with range riding, but you have a name for yourself, I believe, that I found on YouTube. So take it away if I'm right.
Oh boy, okay. Yeah. So there is a YouTube channel. That's definitely part of it. But so what I wanted to talk about today kind of is just something near and dear to my heart. And it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. The idea came into my head about 8 years ago. And it's just something that didn't leave. And I finally just kind of ripped the Band-Aid off, so to speak, and just delved into it and said, I'm just going to stop thinking about this, stop trying to plan it and waiting for it to be a perfect time to launch it. And let's just launch it. And what it is that I'm talking about, and this is kind of a working name in progress, but ecotourism is what I'm dealing with. That's kind of what I'm utilizing to now accomplish many goals. So basically, and you know me from last time, I get off on a lot of tangents because I get excited, but one of the things that I want to talk about is wolf recovery. A lot of people are talking about wolf recovery and they focus on numbers. And I was talking to a colleague not too long ago. And in my heart, I think wolf recovery is so much more than just meeting a certain certain threshold, a certain number of animals that are recovered and call it good. We've seen in other neighboring states to my own home state of Washington that have kind of taken it upon themselves once the last administration removed federal protections to manage them under their own state guidelines. And we saw, 90% calls of wolf populations in various ways that are really atrocious to many people and how they're accomplishing that. And I was talking to a colleague and she was like, well, why is that happening, Daniel? Why did that happen? I mean, we spent so much time and money and energy recovering the species. And now, we're taking 90% of it and just calling it off of the landscape. And my gut feeling was that we never really, as a society, as neighbors to those people in those states that were dealing with wolves, we never really cultivated an importance that's personal to them, whether it be like a monetary gain, showing them their intrinsic niche in the environment, how important they are, whether it be just making sure that they don't trouble them in their livelihood, i.e. ranching. We never cultivated an important want for them to have the wolves around in the first place. So once that protection was stripped away, they just kind of defaulted to, we just never wanted them in the first place, get them out of here. So I was sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, that's where my idea of taking people out on ecotourism rides, basically just taking them out and showing them what I do for a living and making them a part of the solution is what I'm looking at it as. And I was like, well, if we can start doing that and kind of bridging this gap with utilizing the public, why not? Instead of me struggling all the time to find funding for range riders and not being able to scale up my business, I was like, why don't I invite people out and take them out, let them hear wolves in the wild, show them how to track, show them what I'm doing, let them meet a rancher that's actually progressively trying to coexist. And if we can do that, that changes the tide. So when protections are inevitably lifted, there's an understanding, there's a want, and we've cultivated an importance for that community and that culture to have those wolves in the landscape in the first place. So super exciting stuff. I mean, what it does in the end of the day, guys, is basically, how polarizing wolves are, right? I mean, either love them and they're big stuffed animals in many ways, or they're demonic and they're demonized and they're just looked at as this negative aspect of wildlife, like a like an offshoot of what should be here. And I've seen just, I've had a few tours, and actually really cool side note is my first ever overnight tour for winter ecotourism. And I'm still name in progress, right? Because these people are actually coming out and doing the work and being on the ground of like front lines of conservation. But that person got to me, and I was able to take her out and give her a life-changing moment, were her words, from your podcast, John and Stephen. So thank you very much. A big shout out to you guys. Without you guys doing that previous podcast, I mean, she would have never known. And now it's like an ally to this rancher, an ally to me. When she left that time, she was like, how do we? And she took it in this personal way. And it was so profoundly beautiful for me, because I was like, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is connect all of us together and like make a difference and be able to bring solutions to the table, because it's really going to take the whole village, so to speak. And she's like, well, how do we get your name out there? Because this is a beautiful experience that I never thought that I'd have, And that was thanks to you guys. So big shout out to you guys. Most recent guests that I had out, and watching that interaction between this rancher and this, environmentalist, a person that's just really geared towards helping, sit inside of his shop and break bread together in a way that was like, it was just so profoundly beautiful. I mean, she at one point goes, they're talking, and I'm kind of digressing here a little bit, but it was just such a beautiful, amazing moment. I just wanted to share a snippet of it. And so they're sitting there talking, and the rancher looks over and he's like, well, what's in it for you? Like, why are you doing it? And then I'll talk about the other benefits that the rancher actually has from them coming out in a second. But he goes, what's in it for you? Like, why are you doing this? And she goes, well, I really love wolves. And now, instead of just making kind of a donation to an organization, which are very important to donate to, but she actually, instead of just making this donation to a nonprofit that's going to help wolves and not knowing what that goes to, it's like she's on the front lines now. She's actually part of that. She knows who she's helping. She's shaking hands with this gentleman. A week before she ever came out, I sent her a video, like one of the best videos that I'd gotten at that time, in that like last month window. So that was a bad way of saying that. So like the best video that I had in the last month of a wolf coming right up to the camera, I sent that to her like a week before, and it's this beautiful animal. And then that day I took her out to that camera post, the fence post that's on the other side of this guy's calving pasture, and said, do you recognize this? And she's like, yeah, it's where I saw that wolf. Oh my God, this is amazing. And it's like full circle. I know who I'm helping on the wolf end, and I know who I'm helping on the rancher end. And they sat there. So I apologize for digressing, but he goes, so what's in it for you? And she's like, well, I really love wolves, and I really want to,
that's awesome.
I want to see what my help is going to, and I want to help the best way possible. And I feel like this was the best way. And she goes, and this is where it got kind of funny, because she goes, I honestly never thought of your guys' opinion. I just thought that every opinion from a rancher was an anti-wolf negative opinion, and I didn't want to hear any of it. So he goes, well, what do you think now? And she looks over to me, and you guys it was an amazing, it was like exactly what I was looking for. She looks over to me and she goes, well, being out here for just a day with Daniel has really opened up my mind, and I've seen things in a different light, and I really have a new perspective on you guys. And they just had this exchange that would have never happened. They would have never had that opportunity. They didn't listen to your podcast. I wasn't offering that at that time. It was just this amazing exchange. And they left as allies and friends, and that rural and urban gap kind of closed a little bit. Like that one person, it's like that one suture in that big gap, so to speak, or that one brick in the bridge. So I'm sorry, I keep talking.
That's really awesome. Are you getting a lot of folks from both sides of the spectrum, both sides of the thought process coming, or is it predominantly one end of that spectrum, or how are you marketing it to make sure that you get sort of a dynamic, diverse audience of people, so that those kinds of moments are possible?
That's a great question, Stephen. And to answer the first part, that's happened. Not as much as I want, but it's more than I thought it would have in the beginnings. I've had a few instances. Awesome. Actually, every time somebody comes out, it's like this profound meeting of the other side of the coin, so to speak. And they're just like awestruck with how much they have in common versus how much they thought that they didn't. They're awestruck on the fact that this rancher is like, during that conversation that I was just mentioning, he was like, they're beautiful animals. I just don't want them eating my livelihood. I don't want them eating my cows that I know that I've raised, from calves. And she's like, well, I never thought about that. And it's just like this crazy cool exchange. So there's 3 different tiers. There's like a I'm trying to appeal to not just like somebody with deep pockets. I want to appeal to anybody that has, maybe a couple extra $100 that wants to go out and help the cause, experience something amazing, see some beautiful scenery, possibly hear or see wolves, learn how to track, possibly see their tracks, things like that. So I offer 3 different tiers. It's currently a half day, a full day, and an overnight experience. And so like the half day, just to give you a rundown, and all this information can be found on the website. But half day, you come out, you're going to ride a horse for 4 hours. I'm going to give you some lunch. We're going to sit down afterwards, talk about things, kind of debrief on your experience, so to speak, and answer any questions that I can. And I'll open it up to people that are just maybe like, oh, I didn't know that this was an option. I'm just in the area and I had 4 hours to kill, and I'll take my son out and go for a horseback ride, or I'll take my daughter out, or my wife, or whatever, the case may be. So, and then the full day experience is somebody that's geared for more like, I want to see what range riding's like a little bit. I'm going to go in there for 8 hours in that kind of tiered package opportunity. You're fed breakfast, you're fed lunch. You get to talk with a rancher for like at least an hour and really get into that meat and potatoes of the conversation of why you guys are both there, And then beyond that, the one that I really like is the overnight experience. You come out, I put you up in like a glamping sort of situation. You're in a 20-foot bell tent that's fully furnished with a wood stove. You come out, you get fed, 3 meals a day. It's a really plush scenario where I envy when I look at it. I'm like, yeah, I can't really use that all the time in work. So, but it was a really cool setup. Everybody I was a little nervous in the beginning because it's like, people from the city, I don't want them to come out here and feel like they're eating a pot of beans around a campfire and they're going to sleep on my saddle, and stuff. So I didn't want them to feel like that. I wanted them to feel like very comfortable, very safe, warm. I want them to feel well fed so they can basically focus on soaking up that whole experience of what they just experienced out in the wild on horseback, maybe hearing or seeing wolves, and then interacting with a rancher that they thought never existed, from what I keep learning. So, and then what this does is now, well, it does a lot of things. So, besides allowing both ends of the spectrum to meet and safely talk, I'm creating a self-sustaining funding platform for myself. And hopefully if it grows big enough, there's more people that are willing to help, me get the message of that this is my work instead of just me on one allotment. I can start expanding that and hopefully, maybe reach to a different state. I've had people in Colorado that are dealing with wolves coming back from there call me and looking for some consultation, and how great would it be just like, don't worry about it. I'm going to send down a team of 4 people and we're going to self. And if I had my team back, that's many combined years of experience that maybe we could help other people out and help them get ahead of the ball, so to speak. I also figured out a way to pay the rancher. So in this sum that you're paying to come out, you're not only helping, being on the front lines of conservation, you're not only learning what that's like, you're not only actually helping be that solution, but I'm able to then take a portion of that money and pay the rancher for their time to speak on coexisting with wolves. And that's basically in turn paying them to coexist with wolves. So now it's become a source of revenue just by sharing that with the other side of the spectrum. So that's a huge pro. I think, like I've said many times, it really just involves the public directly in a way that they would otherwise not really be able to. And by doing this, that they become the solution to needing quality range riders out there, to getting the public involved. I've done so many talks, guys, and a lot of people don't even know what's going on, the extent of what's going on. They don't know that it's on public land and that they have an opportunity to help. There's so many levels that it really it works on. It's just insane. So another cool thing that I've been talking about for years that we're actually starting to do, that kind of was spawned from last year's severe drought that, I know Washington personally and all over the world was dealing with. A lot of ranchers are having to kind of call half their herd. They're having to get rid of a lot of their animals. I can't do that with my horses. I've committed to them. I've rescued them from slaughter, so they'll never go anywhere, and I'll always have a place for them. But like my hay bill doubled, and I had to look for assistance to cover that. So ranchers, they don't really have that opportunity because their hay bill's already, tons and tons of hay. So I was like, well, you're having to call your herd and you're having to raise less animals, which means you're going to make less money, which means you're going to struggle more. How about we have wolves come in here and be the hero, so to speak, in a way? How about we have wolves come in here? Your efforts of coexisting with them, we can actually charge a higher market value per beef, like per pound of beef. And we're another work in progress, the name. A lot of these things we're just kind of like, just do it, man, and figure out the names later. So the work in progress name right now is the carnivore coexistence certification. So basically, if you're willing to go through the extra little bit of work and you're willing to do that change in your mentality, maybe an adjustment to your tactics, that you should have that cost offsetted by having the people that really want wolves to be in the landscape maybe pay 25 cents more a pound, and that'll help you raise less animals, make just the same amount of money, have wolves because of that, and then that in turn helps the landscape. Right. We now have less cattle on the landscape, so it's just kind of like this win-win-win, and I can keep going on. I mean, there's like a litany of reasons that help standardize range, which I think it's something that I told you guys about. Now we're actually just taking people, making them the range rider that after a decade I'd like to see on the landscape more, because I just don't see people doing it the way that I'm doing it. And not to say that that's the only way, but where I've had a lot of success, and I've been blessed with that opportunity to work with ranchers that are open-minded enough to accept this service, and we've had success where other places are just still struggling and they're not having success. And I think that's due directly to just a methodology of range riding variations. So, I mean, like I said, it goes on. It's creating allies out of would-be adversaries just by connecting. It actually might allow me to pay myself a paycheck too. So I'm in hopes of that too, because in a decade I have not been able to.
First off, we need to go do this thing, John.
Yeah. No, I think you guys should. You guys should totally do it. That'd be fun.
Yeah, we need to go do it. I was reading an article in the Seattle Weekly that was saying the wolf population is really expanding, and there's 4 new packs since 2021. But even with a higher density of wolves and consistent wolf cattle interactions, they've recorded less depredation incidents. Does that ring true for you, or how's it been going? How's the coexistence been going, I guess, for you and for your neighboring ranchers that at least you know?
So yeah, that's a good question. A lot of those statistics are really, if you don't know what's happening on the ground, it's hard to really delve in and see what's happening in those. So for me, I had another successful year last year. Was working for a rancher, 2 different packs on one allotment, and we had a 100% success rate. Everybody got back home safe, which was good. Then another successful winter with a rancher again, took a lot of hours. Thanks for that, CNW, for those guys, for funding my work during the winter. That's something that a lot of people, I think, wolves don't look at the private and public land signs and go, oh, well, we'll stop pursuing that as a food opportunity. So, it's been really successful there. The one thing I would say, it's kind of tricky looking at success in Washington that way, because we have had less depredations, which is good. In a lot of areas, we continue to have depredations. Like there was an attempted lethal removal on a Togo pack in Washington last year. And the only reason that a wolf wasn't removed was that they were just unsuccessful in that pack. Their behavior was augmented, it seems, from the pursuit, via the helicopter. And it seems like they kind of went away just to traffic back into that same area when they're only moving a small amount. They're pretty close in proximity even when they're 20 miles away. That's like nothing for a wolf. So I guess what my point is you really have to delve down, and how do I say this in the best constructive way? We did a lot of lethal removal prior to that assessment that you're speaking of, Stephen. And when you totally extirpate those animals from that geographic hold, and then you say that's successful, that we haven't had depredations there, it's a bit misleading, I think, because it's also, you're not accounting for, we killed the wolves out of that area. So historically, where we've had depredations in areas, I think just by lethally removing them and then looking at it and saying, now we're not, it seems like you're kind of stacking the deck in a way to have more positively relatable statistics that will kind of leave you in favor, I guess, if that makes sense. But I mean, I guess what it comes down to is where I'm seeing solid effort, there's success. And then when there's not really solid effort, we're still having, just because it might not be making mainstream media because there weren't any wolves killed, or the depredations were nominal in the big scheme of things, even though they're highly impactful to that individual family of ranchers. It can be kind of misleading. I think in a trend, we're doing better though, I think. But again, I'd like to see, before we really look at those numbers and solidify them in a way to say like it's working, I'd like to see those wolves back in those geographic areas and see that coexistence model continue while wolves are actively in there, and the numbers that they were when we were having so much trouble before we call it a success, if that answers your question.
No, it does. I think, man, Daniel, yeah, no, it's tricky, but you're doing something that it's very rare to see this, that you actually have both, like you said, you have the city, the rural or the urban area coming into the rural area, and really, like you said, sitting down and breaking bread and talking with each other and finding out where their similarities are, which is something that is very rare to see, but obviously it's starting to gain traction. And I think that's something that needs to be noted, and, applause to you for really trying to bring those two camps together and allow that to happen. Have you seen in sort of the coexistence and with a lot of the hunts that have been going on in the West, it doesn't seem like that has trickled into Washington just yet, but have you had any interactions with individuals outside of Washington State where you had mentioned about Colorado with the reintroduction, about how you can help them? Has anyone from the Idaho, Montana, Wyoming area come to you and seen the work that you're doing and trying to get your methods into these states, or have you not branched out to those states yet?
Not really, John. I haven't branched out there yet, just because I'm so thin. It's kind of like a one-man army as it is. That's one of the goals for utilizing this next phase as a self-sustaining funding platform. The other thing is there are a lot of successful stories. Wood River Wolf Project, Blackfoot Challenge, Tom Miner Basin. These are some cool project names that are in some of those areas of Idaho and Montana that are highly successful. And everybody, obviously, we have different variables that we're working with that we have to account for in our conflict mitigation plan. But there is a lot of success there, even though it's kind of shadowed by what the atrocities of calling 90% of the wolf populations in those states kind of due to that kind of successful story. So, I mean, there is a lot of success there. I'd like to see like programs like that, or like my own, expand into those areas that are having high conflict. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that is just due to the mentality of the individuals in that area. A lot of those folks just don't want wolves. And I can understand that. I don't agree with it, but I can understand that if I had a viewpoint differing from my own and my livelihood directly hinged on if predators consume them or not, how that could impact my opinion on that. But I think with a lot of education and a little twist of mentality and husbandry tactics, I think that those geographic areas that are suffering high level conflict and basically just have the mentality of, just extirpate the wolf from the landscape again, and that's the best solution. I think that if we had the ability to bring some education in there and bring some honest effort in there that was, really hitting the ground with boots on the ground kind of mentality, that we would see that success spread, but currently not there yet. Hopefully this next phase will allow some of this work to kind of branch over into other areas and offer help in other areas where maybe they're lacking or they don't have the experience. So like, I'd love to help the folks in Colorado. There's a rancher out there that's, having the brink of the wolves coming back on the landscape. He's having the brunt of it. He's taking most of that, and he's dealing with it so far pretty well with lots of assistance from other organizations and other entities. So, and I guess a lot of people are trying to give advice in that and help in the best way they can. And like I've told the individuals down there that have contacted me, if they require any assistance or need help, that I would be very amenable to helping in any way that I could. So, but yeah, lots of stuff happening here in our state of Washington that could use some help too. So
yeah, with what's going on in Washington, what are the issues? Because you just touched on that there are coexistence things in Washington that need to be helped out. So what are some of those coexistence issues that are cropping up in Washington, and what sorts of things are you trying to do to help that, along with what you're doing now?
So one of the things I don't know how much we talked about that last time, probably quite a bit. It's been something that's been plaguing wolf recovery for a while, is the standardization of range writing. And I'm just trying to help in any way that I can to kind of really codify that in a legal sense as well. Because what's happening is there's such a varied approach on what range riding should be, what that looks like. For instance, most people are not staying out there for long stints of time. If they do stay overnight, it's for a couple nights and they're leaving. I've seen people, did we touch bases on this at all last time?
Just a quick refresher for people who might not have heard the first one. Yeah, it can't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, standardization is a huge problem, I think, that is plaguing range riding currently. I mean, everybody from people that are cutting wood and getting paid for it to, I found range riders, passed out with a bottle of whiskey in their lap and their Toyota Camry in the bottom of a cattle allotment, to just people that aren't doing their job when they say they're doing their job, to, the list kind of goes on. So that standardization of range riding is something that I've been speaking to for quite some time. I've spoken at wolf advisory groups that are advising the Department of Fish and Wildlife on what to do with that. And what I told them was just a quick version of, you'll never be able to quantify the efficacy of something if we can't even standardize it or define it. I mean, it was I went in there, I was in what was it? I think that was 2020 or 2019. And they had spent a year trying to define a term that, like I told them at that time, I was like, we've lost at that point in time 26 wolves and hundreds of cattle, and we can't even define the best, basically committing morally wrong acts of destroying predators on the landscape, or something that we don't even know if it's effective or not. So like, when you look at the whole broad spectrum of what range riding should be and what it could be and what it is, it's varied greatly, So I've been trying to help standardize that, not just talking to the Department of Fish and Wildlife via the wolf advisory groups, but also just trying to talk to other organizations about that, like that do range riding or that are interested in offering a range riding program under their organization. So just trying to really help get that out there, that there needs to be a common ground of how we and what we call range riding. It's listed, in the newspaper article that, hey, we did actually have 8 range riders out there. It's like, well, you had 8 people that really weren't tracking the predators, seeing what their movement was in correlation to the cattle herds and trying to act as a buffer in between them. You just had some people cutting wood, some people getting drunk, some people just out there hanging out and whatever, but it's not range riding. We're not going to go kill wolves unless range riding was done. So that's been a big goal of mine, to try and help with that. I've been trying to also just do more stuff you actually mentioned in the beginning, John. I'm trying to ended up taking over the YouTube channel that I started. It's just trying to kind of educate the public a little bit on what my job is and kind of get some insight to some of the adventures, some of the chores, some of the bad moments, some of the good moments, into what it's like in my life. Just trying to get that message of what it is. Just trying to make it transparent, So that's been kind of fun. I had a high school friend that was volunteering time for quite some time, and I got spoiled, and now I'm taking it over. So there hasn't been a video in quite some time, but actually it'll probably be coming in about a week. I'll start getting on that process again. I had to start, in what little free time I have, teaching myself how to edit videos. So that's been an adventure in its own.
Exactly. You're a busy guy, Dan, but I really feel like this is going to be an important experience and an important stepping stone in the conversation around wolves and ranching specifically. I'm so impressed by how clever it is, actually. And it's so cool because you're one of the only people on earth who could probably do this, right? Because you just have like such a wealth of experience in these particular arenas, and you're the perfect person to do this type of thing. And I'm like so interested in doing it. I can't even tell you, but I want to make sure that listeners, because I think it's so important, I just want to make sure listeners get all the info they need so they can really digest this and get clear on how to make this happen for them. What else can we say to fill people in on what kind of experience is going to be, or even more specifically, things like, do they have to have prior riding experience, or how do they actually book an experience?
Okay, great point, Steve. I appreciate it, man. This is the new wheelhouse that I have to learn is marketing and all that stuff. So, for one, we can do everything from you're a cowboy to you don't know which end of the horse the hay goes in kind of thing. So, very, very amenable to taking people out that have no experience whatsoever in horseback riding or, being around an equine or anything like that. I've actually had a few people, and there's actually reviews on my website, which we'll get into here in a minute, but, a few people that have felt really comfortable with my approach and how to kind of train them on horseback riding out in the mountains, because it's kind of a crash course, right? You know, if you go for a full day, you're getting 8 hours, and I have to teach you how to be on a horse in kind of some rough terrain and doing some things around predators and prey that normally might not be in your wheelhouse. So really, it's kind of just open to anybody. You can book these online on G.R.I.P.H.com. You go to Adventure Awaits. There's a big picture of a row of horses. It says all you got to do is hop on. And that's literally pretty much what has to happen. I've got some construction that's still kind of underway on that. So that'll give you more of a detailed experience kind of itinerary in that. Once that's up, right now, it's just there's a survey that I asked people to fill out, so I know what horse to pair them with. I know what they expect. I know if they have any kind of injuries or food allergies, or if they're allergic to bees. You know, can tailor the experience to the individuals. I want them to have a good time. I want to know why they're coming out, for instance. Whether it be you want to help wolves, or whether it be you want to help ranchers, or whether it be you just like horses and you know that I save them from slaughter and you want to help support that. Mm-hmm. I want to kind of tailor what their whole interest is to come out. Because, you know, I've done tours at Wolf Haven before. That was one of my job responsibilities when the tour guides were gone. We'd have to break them and let them leave for an hour and go eat lunch and whatnot. And I noticed real quick that when the eyes glass over, when you're talking about historic geographic range, it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't tailor this tour around that. Maybe they want to know their, you know, pounds per square inch for their bite, or how much food do they consume. And I really want to make it a very tailored experience for all the guests and all the individuals that come out. So, and there's, you know, all foods, you know, taken care of. You don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about lodging like that. If you're going to do the overnighter, you just got to show up, literally hop on the horse, have an open mind, be willing to listen to the other side of the spectrum and enjoy it, man. And I really appreciate what you said there, Stephen. It's something that's near and dear to my heart. It's been like my brainchild for a while, and to see it actually taken off it's so amazing, man. And it's for me, I thought, I was like, well, this is such a cool idea. You know, it's such a gift opportunity to be able to offer this to folks. And so I really appreciate your kind words there, man. It means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I echo Stephen as well, Daniel. I mean, he's right. I mean, you're, again, another pin in the map of stuff that Stephen and I have to get to. We've been invited all over the place.
We got to expedite that one,
along our trek. Once we are going to have to expedite it. At least it's on the same coast. But Daniel, yeah. So, I mean, just so everybody knows, so I'll, you know, go to griffs.com, and that's GRIPHS.com. So you guys can get a look at Daniel's website, which is put together extremely well. You get to meet Griff on there, learn about Griff's story. Again, follow him on Instagram at the Danimal, and then go to that YouTube page. So it's youtube.com/the Wolf Ranger. So he's got a couple of videos up there. But I think what you're doing, and Daniel, this is just from two guys who've been in media and have worked in marketing places before, you are just hitting everything at all different angles. You're hitting it from people coming in and physically doing the work and riding the horses and meeting and talking to people. You're hitting it on social media. These are all, you're hitting the multiple points so you can really get this stuff out there. And Stephen's right. I mean, we haven't spoken to anyone who's really, you know, in the teeth of it and really doing all this. So, I mean, kudos to you, man, for just for taking it all on and doing a great job. Seriously.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that very much, John. That's that kind of stuff gives me hope too, because I don't know. I've had to learn kind of everything that I'm doing in regards to this small business, and I think it's a good idea. And then I try and think of it for, you know, years, and I don't sleep much, and it's just constantly churning in there. And when I launch things, it's neat to hear positive feedback, because I don't know how to market. I don't know how to do any of that. I mean, I've learned a tremendous amount, and I'm learning more. And I just kind of approach it from a very, I guess, lack of a better term, a genuine want to help, man. And it's just like, well, what would I want if I didn't have this opportunity? Well, I'd want to go and like take my money and put it to somewhere where I know exactly where it went, and not just kind of, you know, it's like, I want to be part of the solution. So it's kind of just how I've approached my life in general, is just kind of, well, you know, doing to others is kind of mentality / what would I want from this experience? What would I look for? And what would I think is a good time? And so I appreciate your feedback on that. And you guys are way more than welcome to come out anytime. I mean, you guys this is going to be the biggest crux that I feel is, thanks. This will be the biggest crux is just getting people to know about it. And that's something that I'm trying to take advantage of any opportunity that I have right now. I don't have a marketing budget or anything, I don't have much of a budget at all to work with. So things like this are a huge, tremendous help. So I will obviously definitely be honored to extend the offer both ways. So come on out anytime, put you on a couple horses. Yeah, you just so the website is just set up right now. Just fill out the survey. You click at the bottom of that. I think it's like a button that I made because I had to learn how to make the website too. So thanks, Stephen. I appreciate the compliment on that. But I think it says like Giddy Up or something, Giddy Up and Go or something like that. You click on that and then it shuttles you over to like a payment option. You select what package you want, what day you want on a calendar, and then it emails me and then we meet up. I give you directions a couple days before where to meet me in the woods kind of thing. Or if you need a shuttle, I'll arrange that. And then we go on an adventure.
All right. So it's G.R.I.P.H.com. And then what do you go to? Is it just on the front page?
Yeah. So you got to go to grifts.com.
G.R.I.P.H.S.com. You go to the 3 lines at the top left and you click Adventure Awaits. And then there's a bunch of photos and a little description there. All the types of tours. And then if you go to the bottom, there is an adventure questions form there. And I guess that's where you'd fill out. Yep, that's where you'd fill out all your info and submit.
And then at the bottom, it says, well, after you submit the form, it says right at the bottom, Stephen, what are you waiting for? Click here to Giddy Up. And that's how you pay for it. And then sign up for the actual date.
There you go.
And this will look a lot more user-friendly in about a week.
No, it looks good. I ran through it. I mean, people will definitely go to it. I mean, listen, anybody who didn't listen to Daniel's first podcast, definitely go back and listen to that. We got into...
What episode is that?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's 56. Steven's going to look it up for me. Something like that. But we spoke about G.R.I.P.H, which was an awesome story. And yeah, you saving the horses from slaughter and keeping these horses alive with a great life. I mean, you're hitting all different points, Daniel. And I mean, it's great. I'm thrilled that you contacted us again so that we could have this conversation and only help, propel and do anything we can to help propel this further with all the great stuff that you're doing. So again, man, like I said, eventually, for those of you that don't know, so at some point, Daniel is going to come down to Wolf Connection. So he's going to actually get to see the land and the wolves and hang out. So we are going to have, in the near future, it seems, a podcast with Daniel and a possible surprise guest, which I'm going to tease that for now. So those of you that listen to the podcast, but there's a mutual friend of Daniel and hopefully ours soon that'll be down here as well from the Washington area. But anybody go look at grifts.com, check them out on IG, and definitely check out the YouTube page. But Daniel, awesome stuff, man. And once again, anytime anything new happens, you give us a shout and we'll get you back on here.
Man, sure. I appreciate it, you guys. You guys are very kind and helping me with that. I look very much forward to meeting you in person, shaking your hand and seeing your land and seeing what you guys are up to great stuff out there, and I'd love to come out and check it out. So looking very forward to that. Hopefully it's in the very near future. Yeah. And we'll make our way up there. Trust me. It'll be a pin in the map, and Steven and I, and maybe we'll bring a couple others up there. So this is great. So everybody, Daniel Curry, a man of many hats and awesome causes. So take a look at take a look at the episode before, and then this one will be posted very shortly, actually. Hal Steele out there, and Steven and I will be with you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Looking to support Wolf Connection or sponsor one of the wolves in our pack? Just go to wolfconnection.org, click on the Donate tab, and find out more information.